YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about the Leatherman Free T4. It's a really cool multi-tool, and this is the Victorinox Huntsman. This is not going to be a versus video or anything like that, trying to say one is better than the other. I just have the Victorinox out to have something to compare the Leatherman T4 to. Okay, let's get into the video. All right, let's start with some of the specs of this multi-tool first. The length of the multi-tool, and these are my measurements. The length of the multi-tool, I was getting 3 5/8 inches. The weight of the multi-tool on my digital scale, I was getting 4.3 ounces or 122 grams. The length of the main blade, I was getting 2 1/4 inches, and that was up to the scale, so not down to this part. The blade thickness is 2.8 millimeters with my calipers. This multi-tool has 3 main tools on this side and 3 main tools on this side, for 6 tools in all, but some of the tools have more than one function, and we'll go through all of them. This is what the blade looks like next to a Victorinox blade. It's a little bit shorter, but it's wider in profile, and the steel makeup is different. The steel on the Leatherman T4 is 420 high carbon, and it's a little bit harder than the steel that's on a Victorinox. I don't know the exact steel that's on a Victorinox, but it is a pretty soft steel, but it does have good corrosion resistance. This blade, compared to the Victorinox, this is a hollow grind, and the blade stock is a little bit thicker than what you would get on a Victorinox, so you could probably use this a little bit harder than you would a Victorinox blade. Also, one of the main differences is all the tools on this particular multi-tool lock, and on the tang of the blade it has Leatherman and then USA. The second tool on the T4 is going to be this large flathead / pry bar / package opener, and I guess the closest comparable tool that a Victorinox would have would be the large flathead, wire stripper, and bottle cap opener. But the main difference is this is not only a little bigger, you can see the thickness in the steel, so this is a very hardy flathead, and you could easily pry open a can of paint with this. It's very sturdy. Then you have a sharp piece right here that you could use to open packages, and then your flathead. The next tool on the T4 is a file, and it's a pretty good file. I've used it before at work, and here's to compare it against the file that's usually on a Victorinox. The file that's on the Victorinox is a lot longer and probably easier to use, but it's pretty smooth. It doesn't take a lot of material off at one time, and this side of this file, it's pretty rough, and it'll really take a lot of metal off of something. Now on the other side of the T4, the first tool, we have a Phillips and a bottle opener, and on Victorinox you usually have a full 3D Phillips, which would probably work a little bit better, and it's usually where the corkscrew would be. And you can kind of see that this Phillips is a little bit longer, but it's flat. But look at how thick the blade, not the blade stock, but the stock of the metal is on that. It's pretty thick. The tools on this T4 are pretty hardy. Okay, the next tool on the T4 would be an awl, and it also has a small flathead screwdriver at the end, and this part of the awl is pretty sharp, so you could use that as a scraper. And just to compare it with a Victorinox awl, it's quite a bit larger, but the Victorinox awl also has a sharp part right here that you could use as a scraper. And for some reason, the awl on the Victorinox is actually thicker than what's on the T4. And the last tool on the T4 would be some spring-loaded scissors. And these are actually pretty decent scissors. And here's what they look like next to some Victorinox scissors. Pretty similar in size. It looks like the scissors on the Victorinox are a little bit larger, and I have yet to find any scissors of this size that are better than the Victorinox scissors, but these are actually pretty decent. I have a piece of 550 cord right here, and these scissors will get through it. Didn't get through it very easily, but it got through it. And just to compare, these are Victorinox scissors. Just went right through it. I tell you, these scissors on a Victorinox, they're just second to none. And they're actually my favorite tool on any Victorinox. And last but not least, the T4 also has a pair of tweezers. And they're very similar to what you would find in a Victorinox. But I would have to say that the ones on the T4, they feel a little flimsier than what's in a Victorinox. These feel like you could grab onto something a little bit better than these. They do look and feel usable. Now, one thing the T4 has that a Victorinox doesn't have is a pocket clip, and this is deep carry. It's one position only, and it's pretty plain, but it works really good. I haven't had a problem with it. Look at the outside a little more closely now. I really like the way these metal scales look, and here's the locking mechanism. All the tools on this multi-tool lock, and when you want to unlock them and close them back, you just push it up a little bit and you can close all the tools. And then on this side, and you have Leatherman and then Free T4. And this empty space is taken up with plastic on both sides. And the last feature of this multi-tool, you can see right here, there's a really small hole and a space where you could put a split ring. Although I think this multi-tool is a little bit too big to carry on your keys, but I was able to get this small split ring in through that hole, which is very similar in size to the split ring that's on a Victorinox. These are really cool multi-tools made by Leatherman. It's small and compact with a lot of useful tools, and I definitely think this is worth purchasing. If you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And I hope everybody out there had a great Memorial Day weekend. I'll see you guys next time.